rebuilding confidence, and harmonizing with nature. With over 4 decades of changing lives, your self-discovery archaeologist, get ready to be the best of you with your host, Beverly Zymet.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Beverly Zymet Show, where being the best you gets easier with every guest I have. And today I have a returning guest, Michael McDonald. He's calling in from Spain, and wow, we have got some updated news, exciting news, fun things, and kind of interesting things on how one needs to get really resourceful when it comes to the events going on around the globe with this 2020 COVID pandemic and how it has impacted lives, not only personally, but in business. So welcome to the show, Michael.
It's great to be on, Bev. Thanks for having me on again. I enjoyed our last chat, and this one's set to be just as good.
Yeah, maybe even a little bit better. Right? So, Michael, tell the audience here, what is going on in Spain, in the upside down world we live in today? What are you facing over there when it comes to how you do business and how it has impacted your life?
Well, I'm on Lanzarote right now, it's in the Canary Islands, but it's a part of Spain. So how it's happening here is probably different to the mainland. So we've got like the islands and then mainland Spain. And what's happening is because the cases of the coronavirus or COVID-19 or however you want to sort of name it,
Right.
we've had to put measures in place. So the government have sort of stepped in and they're putting more restrictions. And what I've noticed is they're trying to get back to normal as best as they can, but the restrictions are making that difficult or it's unenjoyable. Like they actually hate that, they would rather not do it than do it. So one of the examples is schools. So the kids have to wear masks and they're all socially distanced, very restricted on like their movements to a certain degree, because they can't monitor the kids' contact or anything like that. So obviously you can't, right? But what's happening is that they're doing what they can to open the school, but with the restrictions that are in place, i.e. they're doing what they can to keep everybody safe, but it's spoiling the actual experience of going to school.
That's we're seeing that over here in the States as well. Some states are a little more flexible than others. There's a lot of online schooling happening now, like a lot, right? And again, it's that monitoring. How do you monitor? How do you monitor all of that? We've actually been looking on the virtual reality platform that I'm working with, is getting things set up, especially for the special needs kids, because that's even more difficult because again, that interaction's not allowed, that touching's not allowed, and it's been a struggle. It's been a real challenge, but like you said, the experience of school is something that is part of your childhood, right? And all of a sudden now it's not, and it's almost traumatic. And it's like, how do you explain that to a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 10-year-old? It's like, but I don't feel bad, and my friends are feeling okay, and it's a struggle with that, right?
It is, and I've had a fair few conversations about it now. And while I don't have kids, I used to work with kids, and kids are awesome. I've got a bit of a protection thing going on with kids. Like if you hurt kids, then you're not my friend anymore. It's that kind of situation when it comes to kids, and it's training the kids to teach. fearful of each other.
You know, that is so true, because that is the message. That is a message that's coming out there. And I think it's not just the children that are being impacted by that fear movement. You know, the parents, you know, everyone on the planet is beginning to live in that fear-based mentality, which is really unhealthy in its own right. And it kind of, and I'm a believer of this, you know, what you focus on is a result of what you get. So if there's that fear factor that you're going to get sick, and it's there constantly, that's going to happen, because it's that placebo type effect, right? That you begin to feel it, and your body starts setting itself up for that because of the fear, you know, regardless of what that fear is, right? It's there.
Part as well is that the virus, I mean, here it's a bit different. We are a bit disconnected from the rest of Spain, never mind the rest of the world. But it's very real for some people. So
it is.
When we talk about the fear mentality, part of my issue with the way that a lot of people phrase it is that some people have this button that goes, as if it's not real. This sort of off to the, oh, well, it's just a mindset thing, therefore it's not real. But the problem is if it is real, in some cases it's gonna, if you don't take any steps at all, you could be worse off because of trying not to feel the fear of it. Does that make sense? It's almost like you convince yourself that everything's great, and then you end up getting the virus, and you think, well, I should have been a bit more conscious of what I was doing, rather than just pretending everything was okay, even though that it's not. But the flip side of that, which is what we're seeing more of, I guess, thanks to social media, right? It's out there. In the
Yeah, you know, and it's you really, you know, what you're saying is so true, because I think it goes back in everything in life, right? Is caution. You know, taking caution, not having fear, but taking caution and paying attention, right, as to what's going on, versus, you know, the fear factor. And again, it's weeding through, you know, what's truth for you, because again, it goes back into that individual person, right? What is your belief, and how are you going to deal with that and handle with it in your life, right? So we've got two extremes. We live in this world of duality. You know, we go all the way one side and all the way the other side, and it's finding that happy medium. And that's caution. That's taking caution, right? And not taking a blind note to it, but not running in fear like, oh my God, you know. There's your extremes. So it's finding that center balance.
The example that I do try to sort of pinpoint is, the bigger the platform will, the more you've got to allow for conflicting opinions. So
right.
Like, if you've got like your own little corner of the planet, right? Your four walls and a roof, right? Your house. You can do whatever you want within those four walls. You can believe whatever you want. You have your own family values, right? But
exactly.
if you go out into the town centre or the major city, you can't stop people from thinking differently than you, and yet you still got to get along. So I think that depending on where you put yourself, ultimately you've got to be civil. You've got to get along with people that you might potentially disagree with or have different opinions of, and you want to pass each other in the street without wanting to kill them, right? Or you can't, like, you can't walk into a restaurant and go, I don't like this restaurant, they're all wearing masks. No, they're wearing masks whether they really believe in it or not, because it's about everybody else. Whatever they believe in or not, the masks don't protect you, the masks protect other people. Either way. So it becomes like, to to a certain extent, I guess, depending on where you hang out and where you go, depend on how much you've got to bend what you believe. You've just got to get through it. You've got to be civil. You've got to get along with other people. Because I don't personally think locking people in their homes is the best option. Now, if like, because right here, we've got masks, we've got disinfectants, we've got social distancing, we've got a reasonable amount going on. My question is if all that works, what's stopping us from going back to normal, but with masks and disinfectant? Why do we need to social distance as well?
Right. You know, and I think that's the big question that most people are asking.
Everything. Why not do what works and we can move on? The only reason why things are getting more restricted is because it's not working.
Right.
Otherwise, we just have masks and we clean up after ourselves, look after ourselves, and that would be enough. If it was enough, a lot of countries that do treat it that way, a lot of countries that do live that way, they'd be fine. So it's a difficult chicken and egg situation whereby do you be restricted and then see what happens? Or do you treat it as a sort of a health issue and encourage people to get healthier, to fight it themselves? Because a lot of people talk about like the immune system as well, and this is the bit that confuses people a little bit, because there's a difference between not catching anything and recovering from it when you catch it. So the better
and it really doesn't matter what it is, whether it's COVID, whether it's a cold, whether it's another flu, whether it's a broken leg. We all have that recovery period, and the body, has the elements in it to fight that off, right, and to work with that, and so being able to build up that immune system is just kind of building up your warrior inside, so that the body has more to fight, more protection inwardly, right, if there were an exposure. So, Michael, how has it altered your business, and where are you taking your business now? How has this whole arena affected you? You mentioned something that you're actually going to be moving yourself into a completely different space. Can you share that with the audience?
Yeah, well, the idea behind it, I mean, the business side, nothing's massively changed, because my business was mostly virtual anyway. So the offline stuff, I've been gradually weaning that out anyway, because I like to work online, I prefer it, it works better for me because I can carry it wherever I want to go.
Exactly.
So with that, virtual is always going to be 85-90% of my business anyway. I was going to add offline elements until the virus hit, so those plans are officially put on hold. But what I will say is there's a certain minimum, I guess, that I want to be able to look after myself, and I want to be able to help others the best way that I can.
Right.
So if it's affecting me, my health, my mental state, my ability to help people, that isn't something I'm prepared to handle. I would rather do something about that versus just cope with it and put up with it. So I'm very, very close to moving abroad, finding somewhere that has the balance of looking after yourself and also taking precautions regarding the virus. Mostly because you can't just say one thing is going to do it. You've got to...
No, and every situation is completely different. Every area is different, right? So nothing is the same. You know, when you look at normalcy, the whole COVID aspect, there is no normalcy because it's extreme from one country, one city to the next. You know, one community to the next. There's just no rhyme or reason. It just is, right? And you also mentioned something about the mental state. When we look at the mental state of the world, you know, coming into this and now being presented with it for since March, it's 7 months, going into 8 months. That's a long time. And so to have that fear factor always kind of running in the background is not healthy on the mental state, whether you're thinking of it consciously or not. It's all around you. So every time you see someone with a mask, every time the word COVID is said, it triggers that memory, that thought, that whole arena of everything that's happening, right? So your unconscious is continuously running, and it does make an impact on that mental state. The human was not meant to be separated, right? We are humans, and we're meant to interact, right? And to have that personal touch, that personal interaction. And I think that is one thing that's causing a lot of disruption, as we mentioned earlier in the show, especially with the experience that kids are having just going to school. It's like, wow. You know, and I mentioned virtual reality. So the impact and the shifting working in the virtual reality world, yes, it's avatars, but it's more than that. It helps the mind say, wow, there's somebody here. We're not jumping around in funny little characters, you know, that are on half bodies, that look like a cartoon. The virtual reality that I'm talking about is your avatar will look like a human being. We can actually design it to look like your humanness, right? You have, you know, you dress, you know, in the same way you dress, you know, daily. You can have fancy outfits, you can have casual. But it brings the connectedness back because now you're in an environment where here my environment looks like the world and yours looks like your couch and pictures on the wall, right? It's different. When you're in the virtual reality, everyone is in the same environment, whether that be sitting down by the beach, whether that be in a classroom, whether it be in a boardroom, whether it be in an event center, whether it's at a theater, it doesn't matter, right? All of these things are available in the virtual reality world. And when you come into that, in that avatar format, what transpires? The feeling of being connected. Because you talk in there. Here we are, we're talking on Zoom. You're over there in Spain and I'm over here in the US. And we have a one-on-one communication. The static isn't as relevant here as it is when you have a whole bunch of people on a Zoom. Well, the brain is saying, okay, too much, and then it begins to have fatigue and it starts to shut down. If you had those same, say, 25 or 50 people in a room or a world build, as we call it in the virtual reality world, in that same space, everyone is going to see the same thing. You will be talking with someone right next to you in avatar form, and you will find yourself sitting here behind the computer as you're watching what's going on, turning and speaking with that person as if they were next to you. That's how the mind begins to register it. That's what closes the gap to the distancing. And you don't have that fatigue. You don't feel separated. And you can carry on business or just conversations in a format that brings back normalcy into an upside down world. So we're looking to take the best of the planet world, right? That third dimensional world that we exist in, plus the 5-dimensional world of virtual reality, and bring that together to have things that are familiar, that are engaging, that are bringing people together, that connectedness in an environment, in an experience that is comfortable, engaging, and productive. So that's what we're doing on the end of virtual reality. And we're getting a lot of businesses saying, okay, tell me more. And we're actually getting schools, I had mentioned, saying, okay, how do we do this with these special need kids, right? Well, children coming in the world today, and even, for the past couple decades, we're looking at the world of technology. That's where it's at. I mean, we would not be speaking here today if it weren't for technology. So we're taking that technology, and again, the learning curve and the learning process of children coming into the world today, it has to be met on their terms in that technical world. And so we're bringing that together and working in an environment to where their learning skills are being triggered and generated so that these kids can be able to interact in a world outside of virtual reality because it's comfortable, because it's familiar now, they can understand it, because their brains are wired different. The neurotransmitters, and it's been proven by science, with a lot of usually like the autistic kids, they have more neurotransmitters all buried on top of each other, all firing at the same time, that they don't know what to do. It's like there's too much, everything is turned on that they can't function. So by working in the virtual reality world, we can take one layer of each one of those neurotransmitters and wire them into a formidable piece of equipment, shall we say, right? So that now when they're exposed to all of it at once, the neurotransmitters aren't just going to go off wildly. The neurotransmitter that says, oh, that's that kind of person. Oh, it's that kind of store. Oh, it's that kind of environment. And they don't get that, what's going on, because too many things are all turning on at the same time. And that's huge. And when we look at the mental health world, they have been using and testing virtual reality really, really heavily for the last, I think, probably 4, 5, 6 years now, helping people with PTSDs, anxieties, phobias, heavy fears, right? To help them overcome that. So when you look at what's going on with the COVID arena, it has struck a chord that has rippled throughout the world. What are we going to do to get that ripple effect and that impact back into an arena of, whoa, let's breathe, let's exist. How can we move beyond that fear factor, right? And start living as a community again. And that's where DBI has come in to take that virtual reality arena and incorporate it together to bring some type of balance into the world again. And we are on a global platform, and there is all that interaction. So what a way to start your business with the events that we're having now that are going to run, 6 weeks back to back. So starting October 1st and going to the 23rd of December, you're going to be able to come into a platform where there's all kinds of entertainment, speakers, vendors, you name it, music, everything going on in here to bring back memories of something that was once normal, to start to rest the fear factors, start to rest those triggers of the hormones that are being triggered that create stress in the body. So that type of environment then reduces that stress trigger and says, oh wow, I can come in here, I can meet new people, I can have my friends come in. I can have family members in here. I can have the people that I know in here. Oh my gosh, we can sit down and have a meal together because we're creating room environments like a restaurant, a big fancy restaurant, or just a little McDonald's style restaurant, shall we say, right? And where you can order in, because we all know that delivery has been the ultimate. So you're meeting someone on the platform. Each of you orders a meal, or you surprise someone and the doorbell rings. Wow, you just had dinner sent over. And now you're in the platform together, right? And you decide, hey, let's go to where it's nice and comfortable. It's an evening meal, and you throw up a little fire pit. You're sitting around, and you're both in that comfortness, and you're talking and enjoying a meal in your own home, yet it feels like you're together because of the environment that was created. That's what we're looking to do with DBI and the events that we have created, is to bring the world closer together. It really is a small world out there, and we want to make it even smaller and more connected. Right?
But it's something that we definitely need more of. I do think that some people are coping better than others. Some countries are coping better than others. And as I say, it's everyone's sort of priority to get back to some kind of normal. And I think that, unfortunately, that could also be causing a lot of the people talking about the second wave. And
right.
And I think that in some cases, I don't like saying that the whole world's going to crap because we're trying to get to normal too quickly. But what I would say is trying to force it too soon, that could be what's causing the increase in the cases and the increases in the rate the virus is spreading, because people are fighting the system, people are stubborn, or people just don't want to agree with how their government is dealing with the virus, so they're kind of like just doing their own thing.
Right.
In some cases they're probably doing fine, in other cases they're not. So one of the issues that I'm seeing is, because no one really knows what's going on, apart from the people that really do know, everyone's just trying to make sense of it versus
Right.
knowing what's going on. And I think that's playing into it, because if you connect the dots and say, it's all fake, it's not real, I'm going to go about my day, my life, and that's it. The rest of you can do what it is that you want, but I'm going to go back to normal. And you could be fine. You could be amazing. You could be one of the people that can do that and not contribute at all negatively to the virus.
Right.
And you're right as a result of that, right? Because you don't get.
Well, that's what's right for you, right?
Yeah, but then you've got people that would do that and then contract the virus without realizing it, pass it on potentially, and you still may never know because you've never got tested, you don't believe in the testing, and it's so varied, and there's so many moving pieces, there's so many cogs in the machine, and no one can prove
Right.
cause and effect or cause and correlation, right? It's very hard to really pin it down, and that's where all the confusion is. That's where all of no one has a clue starts coming up in certain conversations. And
again, we talk about those two extremes, right? Going from one to the other, and so it's where's that happy medium, and again, you use that word normal a lot, right? Well, the norm that we once knew is never going to be again. That's done, and so what needs to inspire here to stop those stress triggers from going is to create a compatible comfortability, right? something that's going to bring a calmness and a comfortableness into your environment, right? Because stress, stress has been proven for centuries, to be the cause behind all destruction within the human element. And so it's turning off those stress triggers so that the cortisols and the dopamines and everything aren't running rampant throughout the body, creating a habit. So it's time to bring not normalcy back. It's time to bring something that's going to give you a feeling of comfortableness and safety, right? Because, again, we go back into, like say the Stone Age, the caveman age, because that's in our DNA, is that fear factor. Oh, wow, I have to go out for the hunt. I need to bring food home for the family, right? But whoa, that bear might be behind that tree, or the lion behind that tree, or whatever the case is. So that was always there. But when the event was over, those stressors were turned off because everyone was in a safe element. Those stressors in the world today have not been shut down, regardless of what that stress is. So working, and that's what we're here at DBI are looking to bring something back into your environment that's familiar, comfortable, to help reduce the stress element in your life, to bring, again, some peace, to try to get those extremes into some type of normalcy, as we put it, right? But into a harmony where we can exist side by side without one side of the trigger or the other being the impact, right? So
people are, I'm trying to think of the best way of putting it. They don't want it to be safe, or they don't want it to be comfortable.
right.
They just want it to be what it used to be. And that's probably a dangerous way of looking at it, because if it never goes back to the way it was, you've got to learn, I guess, to be okay with the new normal. You've got to learn or teach yourself to be comfortable and okay and feel safe in the new way of doing things. It's not something a lot of people want either. A lot of people are holding on to the past as it is, and but there's still no real way out of this right now.
Right.
So the thing people are learning to do is live with it and cope with it. But in terms
right.
of like because I heard this phrase, it was a couple of weeks ago, and I've started to apply it to a lot of different areas of my life as well.
Right.
The phrase was the beautiful solution. So
the beautiful solution. I like that word. I like that wording.
So with a lot of the things that are happening, it's like, in my mind, because we've gone through the virus, we've gone through Black Lives Matter, we've gone through a whole heap of things in the world right now.
And again, we're looking at those extremes, right? Oh my gosh, it's like, wow, where did all this come out of? It's kind of like, okay, what's the next surprise coming out, right? And
that's part of the issue as well, because
right.
we're so sort of on edge.
Yeah, just kind of that waiting.
It pushes us up to like 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Right, and that's causing a lot of the issues. But then when you think about the best or most beautiful solution out there, it isn't extremes.
Right.
So it isn't Black Lives Matter on their own. Well, everyone matters, and people get shut down for that. But then getting past that and getting to a level whereby everyone is treated fairly, that's
right.
the best solution, right? So when people say all lives matter, That's what I think of it as. I think of it as everyone is treated the same.
Right. You know, and again, that is a great point. So in the virtual reality world, everyone is treated the same because there's no color separation, there's no religion separation, there's no female male separation. Everyone can be themselves, so all inhibitions disappear. So it doesn't matter, sometimes people think about, oh God, am I too fat? Am I too skinny? Do my clothes look okay? Is my makeup okay? All these little vanity things, so to speak, right? But again, we look at this time that we've been spending with ourselves. There's the element, because it all begins within, and to be at peace within yourself creates a ripple effect to have peace outside of yourself and that surroundings. I wrote a book several years ago, and it's called The Power Formula. It's the heart-mind connection. When we look at things that are going on in the world today, our thought processes can take us into an abyss, that is like non-ending. But it can also take us into a space of peace and harmony. And we have the choice. Where do we want to go? When we start really coming into the self, you've got to be comfortable in your own skin. Now is the time, there's been an awakening, what's been called the awakening, for several decades now. And I personally feel that this whole arena here of separation and of, slowing down the world, so to speak, is an opportunity to awaken the spirit, because we all are a spirit inside this physical body, to really awaken and come into connection with the spirit, with that soul person of who you are, and begin to work in conjunction with and where it is that you are. Because when you can come into the element of that spirit and come from your heart, you had mentioned, is connecting with people because everyone matters. That has to come from the heart. That doesn't come from your thought processing. That doesn't come from the database of information that you've been shown with all the trauma and the fighting and the unhealthy thoughts, and pictures and the newscasting and things like that. Because those paint a very strong hold into that cell memory. So when you start to come from your heart and become that expression of of love, of knowing, of caring, of honoring, of respect, and it all starts with the self. You need to honor the self. You need to respect the self. You need to believe in the self. You need to be confident within your own skin of who you are. You need to begin to trust what you do and the actions that you take. Because if you don't trust yourself, you're not going to trust anything out here in the world. So it all goes back into the beginning of who you are in the spirit essence. What is your journey here on the planet? Now, Michael, you had mentioned before we got on the show that you were doing writing. You were beginning to write more. Can you share with the audience, what is it that you're writing about? And are you putting a book together? Do you have a book? Share it with the audience if you do.
Well, one of the things that I am doing is I am actually writing a book. Now, this is my fourth attempt at writing a book over the past sort of 10 years. And it's because I wrote over 35,000 words of a book that I never finished. And I sort of gave up on, and I sort of thought, I don't feel called to write this thing anymore, which put a bit of a dampener on the old ability to write. But a few years ago, we're going back quite a few years ago now, when I first realized, I guess, that me practicing what I preached as such was helping other people.
Uh-huh.
I'll give you a few sort of examples. Was, although I have cystic fibrosis and I'm also diabetic, became a personal trainer, right? So for a lot of people, I was like, how can someone with 2 health conditions be a personal trainer? That's really weird. But I spent so long wanting to be like everybody else and be seen as everybody else. And I got to a point where I was pretty good on the health front, to the point where I felt comfortable helping other people. But no one really knew that I had the conditions apart from people that were needed to know, like my managers and all those things. So unless something happened, no one knew. No one that didn't need to know.
Right.
They all just was the same as everybody else. So when it came about that, like for instance, I got local media because of P2 health conditions. It's a story just in itself. They read the magazine article. So as you can imagine, the next day, is this you? I said, yeah, it is. Yeah, it is me. Yeah. I had no idea. These are my clients, right? These people that pay me to physically and mentally change their life. And they turned around to me and they said, so I come to you with my little problems and my little excuses around getting fitter and healthier. And yeah, you help me out. That's kind of what I'm paying you for. But mine just don't seem to matter compared to yours. Like you like I'm sort of like, oh my God, I don't have time to and you're like that needs to eat every 2 or 3 hours, otherwise you can't function properly. And you've got the mental battle of like highs and lows of your blood sugar, and you never really feel hyper because you can't eat too much sugar. It's like, how on earth do you manage all of this? And I'm sat here and I come to you, Mike, and I say, oh, I don't have time to prepare my meals. And I'm just like, it is my job. And behind closed doors, I am a very different person compared to when I'm in like work mode, right? And you sort of look and go, okay. So the next time we had our like fitness sessions, right? They come in, they were all hyped up, they were really focused, they were ready to go. And they turned around to me and said, I've been planning this session and wanting to get involved with this session for days. I had the kit ready, I had the food ready, I had everything. I cut out like negative stuff that was keeping me from getting to the gym. I'm like, where's all this come from? And they turned around to me and said, well, I just found that just your ability to do things that other people do, despite your sort of negative starting point, if you will, has just convinced me that I could do it as well. So the excuses went away, the motivation came back, which is just another word for saying doing something you want to do. People are like, oh, just don't do it anymore. It's, do something different then, it might help. So when they started to realize that, I'm doing it, they sort of almost have like permission or validation that they could do it as well.
Right. And that's the impact a lot of stories happen, I mean, nobody knows, like you said, nobody had any idea of what was behind the scenes, Michael, because that wasn't relevant to why they were coming to you for assistance, right? But once they found out, it made their excuses seem really petty. And now they had to reevaluate and adjust themselves, saying, oh my gosh, if this guy can do this, what the heck am I complaining about, right? It's like, whoa. But again, I think a lot of things that people don't realize too, it's like when they ask you, well, how can you do this? Well, you've done it all your life. Why? Because that was what you knew. You didn't know anything different. So nothing else was relevant to you other than this is what's going on with me. What do I need to do to exist in this outside world and to have what it is that I seek? Like you said, you were looking to be normal like everybody else, and so you were putting into action the things that were going to, on the outside, appear that everything was normal, regardless of what was going on inside. And again, that's a belief system, it's a build of confidence, and that was your driving force. right? And we all have a driving force, and we can call that a drug of choice if you want, right? Because it what keeps us going into accomplishing more out there. And that's what this show is all about. How do we become that best us every day? Every action that we take, right? And so what you were doing, Michael, was building that foundation so that you could help clients and help others see that an excuse is just that. It's a reason for you to just say, yeah, I'm not worth it. I don't value my health. I don't, it's like, oh, it's too much work, right? Because they're struggling with things that are in their own mind, just minor. But we all know that, massive things happen when we allow the body to break down. Dysfunction can take over and really create havoc. And that's been kind of proven with the whole situation that's going on here in 2020, right? So we talked about that immune system and the thought process and the mindset and everything. It all comes in effect. It's not just one thing. It's everything put together to how do we protect this human meat machine, this physical body, to perform at its highest capacity. And it all begins with your thought processing. And how you respond to that thought processing. What are your excuses? You're either living or you're dying. You can't have both at the same time. If you want to feel comfortable or if you want to feel miserable, that's your choice. But you can't have both comfortable and miserable at the same time. It's one or the other. Where do you spend your time? Where do you spend that time in your mind that responds to your physical? So it all begins out here with a thought. When you focus on that thought, it ripples through every cell of your body, and your body really respond accordingly. And it's not about, positive thinking, it's more than that. It's an action step to what is it and where is it that you want to be. And that's what you're doing with your clients here. And now that they know the behind the scenes, it's like, well, if he can do it, I can do it. And so this is a story that needs to get out. It's not about the woe is thou stories. It's like 3 minutes or 5 minutes. Here's my story. These are my struggles. And you know what? I decided that was not going to define me. And that's what you did, Michael. These labels that the medical field has put on me is not going to define who I am. So, now that I know what I'm up against, this is what I'm going to do. And boom, you set out to do it, and you accomplished that. And you continue to accomplish it because you didn't allow that to take you down. So regardless of what it is, where we've come from, oh, my childhood was so disastrous. Oh, my goodness, and all the trauma. Are you living in the trauma? Or are you taking that trauma to drive you to something better? Right?
It was at that moment really when I felt this. I wouldn't say it was pressure, was probably the wrong word, but I felt the responsibility, I guess, to keep doing it, not just let it end with the fitness side, to sort of take it into the other areas as well. So It was at that point I did like a lot of different stuff, to tell you the truth. It was, what else could I do? It was...
Yeah, what's the next thing that's going to increase the outcome of what I'm seeking, right? And you go to the next and to the next and to the next. And, it's those big aha moments. And again, it wasn't about anybody else out there. It was all about Michael in here. What is Michael going to do? And you use that word, responsibility. We're all responsible for one person, and that person is ourselves. So what we give internally is what we give externally. And that's what makes you the leader in your industry, is because you're not asking your clients to do anything that you haven't already done yourself or in the process of doing. right? And that's what makes a leader.
That was the biggest thing, because then I felt not responsibility, but I didn't realize what I was doing at the time. So
Right.
I didn't get into it turning around and saying, I'm going to be a leader and people are going to follow me and I'm going to be this inspiration to thousands of people. I didn't have that. I was the quiet guy. I was the keep to myself, just do my thing, keep my head down, don't sort of stand up and say, look at me. And I'm, in a way, I'm still not, which is just a testament to how important practicing what you preach is. So
Right.
there's no point in sort of helping people without you being on your own journey as well. So while I don't profess to be an expert in anything, as such, people see me as that because I don't stop myself. So I've been on stage, I've been on TV, I've had articles featured in magazines, I started a podcast almost 3 years ago, and I'm recently getting sort of celebrity guests at the minute, which is getting a bit stupid. So next year is going to be pretty wild.
Well, and that's a good thing, because that is what's sharing to the world, you know. And what you said that's really relevant here is you never stopped.
Yeah.
You never stopped. It just kept on getting better. And it begins to take on a life of its own, right? And like you said, I didn't set out to do this, to be this person, you know, that's out in the forefront. I did it for me. And then it just turned into it because people were asking, right? How'd you do that? How'd you do that? How'd you do that? You know, and that's the caring and the sharing that takes on. You know, Michael, we could discuss this for a long time, and where you've gone from where you came is really relevant right now here in the world today. So if you can leave the audience with one important key to help them continue on their journey, that personal journey, to becoming that better self, what would that be?
Well, I actually had a bit of a mic meeting with myself. Actually, I don't do it all the time because it feels a bit weird when you have like an internal dialogue with yourself. But one of the things that I sort of stumbled upon is you want to live in a way that gives people the permission and validation to do things for themselves. So when people say, oh, well, it must be really great that you can help people in this way, and the book sounds really cool, and you're sharing your lessons I mean, I shared a story of how it took me 4 times as long to get out of bed on the day I was speaking that night, and how I had to convince myself that walking up the stairs to get onto the stage took me forever. The amount of conversations that I had just to get myself onto the stage
Right.
was terrible. But at the end of the day, the massive realization is people see your actions. And yes, I have to bring up the facts, like what actually happened, right? Because people only see, hey, I'm on Bev's show. Hey, I've got this, I've got that. This is happening, that's happening. People
Right.
only see that. So I found that I have to keep bringing up the fact that I'm not like an extroverted person. I have to keep bringing up the fact that I've got health conditions, and yet I go out for runs twice a week, and I've got like a mini gym in the house, and people go, I struggle to work. And it's like, yeah, well, this is the thing, is if I don't keep mentioning it and I just share like, oh, hey, went out for a run today, and everyone's like, oh God, all right, loads of people do that. So I think that's been a bit of a realization for me, like, because people don't see the behind the scenes. It can look great when
Right.
I have articles published, or I'm on shows, or I have interviews, or I'm being interviewed myself, and it can feel pretty weird. And I live on this island right now that, yeah, it's a bit of a weird situation with the virus, But before the virus hit, this was known as a massive holiday destination for everybody around the world. Lanzarote is a very popular place. So that looks great, right? It looks, my entire day is like a highlight reel for a lot of people. But if I say, look, I've had a bad day, woke up feeling groggy, I had a conversation with a friend this morning that made me feel great, and I was able to attack my day again, it normalizes my day-to-day, which makes the highlights all the better, right? It kind of exaggerates how good things are. But at the end of the day, people just see your actions. People, if I didn't do anything, I'd be invisible. No one would know I existed. I'm still not anywhere near where I want to be, but that's kind of the whole point.
But it is, because if you get to the end of the journey of everything you think you want to be, there's always, there's always more. So the key element here that you're saying is...
So easy as well.
So
literally, I get somewhere and I go, what's next? So, yeah.
Right. So it's action. It's all about taking action. So everything that you do creates an action. All the information, the knowledge that you have, put it into action. So, oh gosh, Michael, it's been a pleasure having you on the show again. And if people want to get a hold of you, they can comment below, reach out to you on social media, right?
Yeah, of course. I'm the Michael Bryan on like Facebook and Instagram and Twitter.
Awesome. So it's time to say, go out there and be that best you that you can be. And how do we do that? You take action. So, Michael, go out there and be that best you that you can be, because that's what I'm doing as well. And we'll see everyone on the next show. Bye. What?